Hello, Cubs fans. Welcome back to Northside Baseball. Ethan and Brandon here once again to discuss everything going on with the Cubs, which currently is not a lot. It is the sort of dead part of the baseball calendar. World Series ended obviously a few weeks ago. Mostly just roster maneuverings right now, but obviously there's always rumors and speculation, and so Ethan and I wanted to throw our hat in the rings, not necessarily to speculate on what's going to happen, but to talk about what we would like to see happen if, we were running the Cubs and if money was no object, which obviously it is, but let's pretend it's not just for today. So, Ethan, I'll pass it over to you. Give me your dream free agent and trade target for the Cubs this offseason.
Yeah, look, I'll say this. Being at Northside Baseball is a blessing on its own, but if I were in the front office, I'd probably pick up Dylan Cease first. I feel like, we've talked about the bullpen and just, pitchers at nauseum at this point of, who we need to come to Chicago next. And I can't think of anybody better than Dylan Cease. He did wonders for the Padres. Not for nothing, but he is no stranger to Chicago. He just wasn't on the Cubs before, he was on the White Sox. He's done, great things for the Padres. We need starters. For the love of God, we need starters. And he isn't injury prone, so I mean, maybe he'll get the Cubs curse once he gets here. But I think that he would just be a really great starter for the Cubs. Again, his reputation precedes him. As for a trade, this might be a little controversial, but I think getting Steven Kwan would be a really good pickup for outfield. Look, Seiya Suzuki has been a wonderful player for the Cubs. He has, treated us great, but I think Steven Kwan is just really a better bat right now and a better defenseman. He has probably the same amount of experience as Seiya Suzuki, but if we're purely talking, what trade I'd like to happen, I think Steven Kwan would be a really good pick.
Yeah, you kind of stole two of my top options. Obviously, everyone knows who Dylan Cease is at this point. Former Cubs prospect, traded in that Jose Quintana deal way back when with the White Sox. He's a great starting pitcher, like you said. He's extremely durable. He's made 32 starts for 5 straight years, which is unbelievable in today's day and age. Hopefully, if the Cubs sign him, that the oblique curse doesn't happen to find him. But yeah, I mean, I think if the Cubs were willing to sign a guy, to a nine-figure contract, I think he's a great pick. And then in terms of Kwan, I think you're right. I mean, obviously the Cubs have a very crowded outfield. Owen Casey and Kevin Alcantara need some roles out there. Who knows what's going to happen with Kyle Tucker leaving. But yeah, Stephen Kwan's controls for a couple more years. Ian Happ's won 4 straight Gold Gloves in left field. Who's done it in the American League? Stephen Kwan. He's done the exact same thing in left field. So he's a great defender. He's exactly what the lineup needs in terms of a contact hitter, which I'm going to get to in a second for my pick. But yeah, I mean, I think it all makes just a ton of sense. What you said. Obviously, Kwan might be harder to fit on the roster than Cease, but I think there's logic in both. But I'll go with mine right now. My free agent pick would definitely be Bo Bichette. Again, I'm throwing logic out the window here, but I think Bo Bichette, everyone knows how good he is. He's one of the best contact hitters in the sport. Batting average is a, archaic statistic at this point, but he's one of the best, just pure bat to ball guys that there is in baseball, much like Steven Kwan. He's not a great fielder. So it actually kind of works out with the Cubs, who already have Dansby Swanson, who is a great fielder at shortstop. I think you just move Bo Bichette right over to third base and then figure out whatever to do with Matt Shaw. Again, I have my reservations about Shaw. He had some hot streaks in 2025, but I still think that he has a lot of red flags to work through. But obviously, if you had the money for Bichette to put him at third base, you'd be adding, just another middle of the order bat, and pretty much a ready-made replacement for Kyle Tucker, which would be nice. And then in terms of trade candidates, I mean, there's reasonable guys. I think like Pete Fairbanks, is a great closer for the Rays that kind of fits the Cubs' MO. I'll go with another one. I'll say MacKenzie Gore for the Nationals. The Cubs obviously were in hot pursuit of him at the trade deadline. He is an ace, like a true ace, for Washington. Again, part of the reason why they might trade him per se is that again, there's just a lot of questions about the core that they've been building. They have not been successful in recent years. This was really Gore's breakout season, and he struggled a bit in the second half, so they might try to sell high on him. But he'd be a great addition to the front of the Cubs rotation as a left-handed starter who's young and has some team control left.
Yeah, I think that you're kind of right on the money with Bo Bichette, first of all. I think that, like you said, putting him at third base probably would be the best, pick for where he could go. I want to agree with you that Matt Shaw has had his ups and downs this season. I always kind of would like to say that I think he could use a little bit more time to marinate per se. But with somebody like Bo Bichette, after coming off, although it was a loss, a very close game in the World Series, and him almost getting the World Series, last hit to win the game per se, I think that he would be a great person to be our next third baseman. Again, is it possible? Who's to say? We're all talking speculatively here, but anything's possible in the MLB. As for the two pitchers you picked, I think that both Fairbanks and MacKenzie Gore would be, again, great picks. Look, like we said, we need pitchers at the end of the day. I think MacKenzie Gore, like you said, has really heated up in Washington, and getting him would probably be a better chance than maybe getting Fairbanks right now, in my personal opinion.
Mhm.
As we're very aware, the Cubs really like to focus on their farm system. And don't trade too often when it comes to pitchers. We've seen it in the past 2 years. We've seen younger player after younger player just kind of join the ranks. But to get, a really good player, whether it be MacKenzie Gore or Fairbanks, I think would be a huge improvement. And again, it does really well for new players when you have these veteran players. And I will beat this and beat this dead horse until it is, nothing but bare bones. Have veteran players from other teams come over to your team and train the young guys. It is a win-win situation at the end of the day. But I think, your two picks are great. I hope you like my two picks. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Again, during this time of, where we're waiting for a trade to happen, these are the conversations we're having. Who would you like to be traded onto the Cubs, and who would you like at a free agency to end up in Chicago next? As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and we will be responding to every single comment.